Welcome back, viewers at home. Joining me tonight is an award-winning, renowned wellness expert who is here to enlighten us about Cancer Survivor Day, and he is no other than Ronald Abvajee. Now, he will be bringing a wealth of knowledge and expertise to this important topic, sharing insight on the value of lifestyle changes, emotional resilience, and positive outlook that can aid the journey of recovery. Ronald, assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah so much for joining us tonight.
Wa alaikum salam, and what a blessing to be with you.
Alhamdulillah. Now, there's something that I want us to clarify because seeing how it's Cancer Survivor Day, are you a cancer survivor, or have you directly or indirectly experienced a friend or family member going through this journey?
Personally, I'm not a cancer survivor, but my grandmother died of cancer, and so did my uncle. So it's a very close personal topic for me, especially in not fully understanding what cancer does, but then even more importantly, once you are cancer free and treatment has been successful, then what? Because that's how my grand passed away, without fully understanding. So this topic is very resonant and it's absolutely relevant in the world today, especially South Africa.
No, I felt like we had to establish that because, with viewers, and they'd be like, okay, if someone who hasn't experienced it, how do you get the ability or the platform to speak on it? Because, it's such a sensitive topic and people tend to take it too personally to heart in that sense. But thank you so much for that background and context. But just coming back to tonight's show, before we begin, I want us to take a look at a video by Professor Carol Ann Ben, who is a renowned breast cancer specialist, as she explains what cancer and breast cancer is before we continue our conversation. Let's take a look.
What is cancer? Cells are born, they live, they have baby cells, they divide and they die. And at some stage during their division rate, there are multiple genetic hits on them that cause changes in cells and cell lines. And that's how you get a breast cancer. So what's interesting, where we understand germs outside the body, people will talk about viruses and bacteria and fungi, and they'll talk about you can have TB or malaria, which are caused by one a parasite and one a bacteria. When it comes to cancer, we group cancer together. That's why it's such a scary word. Cancer actually is derived from a word that means crab-like. So we talk about brain cancer, lung cancer, stomach cancer, which is why there's this cancer fear. For example, people with breast cancer, the vast majority, particularly picked up early, are alive and well, some cancer-free, sometimes not, but still can be managed 9 or 10 years down the line.
Now, Ronald, whenever we speak of the word just cancer, regardless of what type of cancer it is or what stage it is, it already has people in a very scared space or headspace. Always like already they're thinking death sentence, they're thinking I'm done living. But then when you have conversation with some of the survivors or people who are going through the treatment, the hope and the resilience that is there, it's quite, it's unfathomable, to say the least. But just to get started on our interview, I want you to just share with us what are the biggest misconceptions people have around, cancer or cancer survivorship.
And I want to segue from what we spoke about in the beginning, that just because a subject matter expert who's qualified and credible like myself in well-being and health and so forth, and behavior change and science, just because I haven't gone through cancer myself does not mean I cannot share the information or disseminate the information. And the information is there for those that are impacted to utilize it to make more informed choices on how they could manage or deal with a particular condition. And I'm not diminishing a story, but I'm adding value for insight and information. So when we look at some of the myths, there are so many myths around it. One of the myths is that breast cancer is only impacting women. Breast cancer impacts men, and men are often diagnosed when it's in stage 4 because we don't tend to test for breast cancer. It's not as common or prevalent, but the death rates are very high in comparison when you look at it from that basis. But one of the other myths is this, is that once you've recovered from cancer, the treatment was successful and you're cancer free, it means you A-okay. And that's a myth. Someone that, especially with today being Survivorship of Cancer Day, Cancer
Yeah.
Survivorship Day, survivorship is the journey post-treatment, post-recovery. And what that means is that post-recovery, you're dealing still with healing. Because your healing hasn't ended, even though you may be cancer-free.
Oh,
Because
okay.
you are healing with the mental, emotional, and the fear that the cancer can recur. So it doesn't mean that you're free and life is merry. It means you are heightened with awareness, and you still need to look after yourself mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually and socially.
Yeah.
And the last one, that's a very common myth, is that cancer is just physical. Cancer's impact is physical,
Yeah.
that you can have tested and screened and treated. But it's also mental, it's also emotional, it's also spiritual. It's also an economic issue because it impacts your ability to perhaps earn an income. Is your workplace understanding or not? It's an issue where stigma is often associated as well. And again, the final myth is that although we have different types of cancer, especially for men, we have prostate, yes, men, because men have a prostate. Women, breast cancer is for men and women get impacted. But cancer can impact anybody. It's not a man or a woman's disease. It's not an adult or a child's disease. It impacts anyone and everyone. And that's what makes it very scary for me, which is why it's beyond a physical battle.
Now, speaking on the misconception, or should I say myths, what are some of the practical steps that we can sort of, consider and start, being aware of to dispel these myths that are ongoing, that are just, stopping people from actually knowing the truth around, cancer survivorship or just cancer itself?
Absolutely. It's about a narrative that we begin to perpetuate. And the narrative is that it's not about you've recovered from cancer, now you're okay, or now you have cancer, it's a death sentence. We need to flip the narratives that you are dealing with a disease, and how do we attend to this disease in the most constructive, sometimes aggressive way with some practitioners and the medical experts and cancer specialists, but also deal with it in a human way that acknowledges that if you do have, for example, breast cancer, like I said earlier, 1 in 9 women in South Africa will be diagnosed in their lifetime with breast cancer. 1 in 9. And associated with breast cancer, for example, is an aesthetic appeal if you have to go for a mastectomy where the breast is removed. Now, a lot of the practices and with the surgical procedures, they bring in a plastic surgeon to do the aesthetic component so that you don't have that as a burden to deal with. So it's all about the narrative that we perpetuate. It's not because you did something only. There's a genetic predisposition, there's lifestyle factors, yes. If you continue to smoke, as we spoke about last week, and you increasing your risk of lung cancer, throat cancer, and mouth cancer, hey, that's a choice, right? I'm not saying you will if you smoke, but you're increasing your risk if you do. If you're eating unhealthy processed foods, you're increasing your risk of colon cancer and colorectal cancer. If you are, following unhealthy habits and not resting enough and so forth, you increase your body's risk of developing cancer in different areas. So the narrative is one about cancer can impact anyone. No one is immune. But what are we doing to fully understand the journey when you're going through treatment and diagnosed, and then the second half of the journey, once you've recovered, now what?
Now, speaking of the latter, in terms of once you've recovered and the doctors are like, okay, you have survived or cancer has been cleared in that sense, what are some of the steps or nutrition that cancer survivors can or should try to implement within their diet and lifestyle to sort of have that proactive sense in guarding or trying to not find themselves in the same space that they were? Because as you mentioned now with your late grandfather, may Allah grant him Jannatul Firdaus, is that he was, I don't even know if the word cured cancer is correct at this sense, but he went through the treatment and he was now a survivor of cancer, and because of not much information after that, it's something that, I could be wrong, led to his passing, but Allah knows best. And for those who are now on the journey and are determined as survived cancer, what nutrition should they consider and lifestyle they should, implement?
So it was my grandmother
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, my grandfather, not so sure of, but something, right? No longer with us. But thank you for that. One, we know that the World Health Organization recommends a plant-forward diet. So plant-forward diet means it's the same diet that we should be following, where
Okay.
there's minimal red meats and unhealthy foods, processed foods. For those that do, drink alcohol, cut it. For those that smoke, you cut it. Processed foods, you cut it. And red meat, you try to decrease as much as possible to maximize your body's ability to build up its immune system, to build up its system to support a healthy body, to be as preventative as possible towards cancer. So food is your first prescription, but your second prescription is exercise and movement. For example, did you know that according to cancer, the Cancer Association of South Africa and the World Health Organization, that if you have breast or colon cancer, your chance of cancer recurring is decreased by 40% if you are physically active for more than 150 minutes a week post recovery or being diagnosed as cancer-free after having cancer. So it doesn't mean you're not going to have a recurring issue, but it's decreased by 40%. Those are odds I'm willing to take. And the next thing we look at is decreasing stress levels. So mental well-being, spiritual well-being becomes critically important because you decrease cortisol, which is the stress hormone. So you don't impede your immune system. You enable it with the plant-forward diet, healthy nutrition, physical activity, and managing stress. Then alhamdulillah, you're putting yourself on the right foot going forward.
Now, they always say, your headspace is very key in this journey of, surviving cancer or even just post recovery in that sense. What would you say, or can you talk about the importance of emotional support in the cancer survivorship's journey?
Girl, our headspace is important in everyone's life in today's day and age, but more so in the cancer survivorship journey. Again, a fact by the WHO and other organizations is that for those that have a social support network, have a 50% adherence to cancer treatment. Because cancer treatment, depending on the type of treatment, is hard. It's hard on the body, it's hard on those nearest and dearest to you. And when you have that social support, you are 50% more likely to stick to the full treatment of adhering to that. So it's very important. And post your treatment and post being cancer-free and being a cancer survivor and dealing with cancer survivorship, having a support network brings in understanding, so mental resilience, mental support, emotional understanding and context, and finally, it gives you the opportunity to just feel safe. And we've spoken about it on ample occasions. When you have psychological, emotional safety and spiritual safety, it gives you the opportunity to decrease the strain and stress hormones that get released in the body. It allows you to maximize the feel-good hormones that prime. So the biochemical hormones, serotonin, oxytocin, and dopamine, those ones prime your physiology to thrive. And that is what we want when it comes to cancer survivorship.
Now, Ronald, unfortunately, I have so many questions to get through, but because of time, we have run out of time. What closing shots would you like to leave our viewers with, considering this topic of Cancer Survivor Day?
Grit and resilience is absolutely important because to get to surviving cancer means that you went to war with death and you pushed through. You had the skills, the abilities, and the tools to push forward. And all I can say to you is, inshallah, you maintain the ferocity if you are dealing with cancer, and you maintain the awareness of a healthy lifestyle once you are a cancer survivor.
Ronald, Jazakallah so much, for coming in regularly and really just giving us ease in understanding some of, the illnesses, the diseases that are out there, and making it seem like, it's possible for us to overcome them. It's possible for us to really, be resilient in that journey and still thrive while, still in that journey and come out to the other side better selves, in that sense of, it's not just better as in you're healthy, but also your mental headspace, in that sense where you come back stronger, you come back strong-willed as well. But Jazakallah so much for coming in.
Always a pleasure.
Viewers at home, that was a lovely, quite interesting conversation between myself and Ronald Abvajee on all things Cancer Survivor Day. Hope that was helpful for you, but you do not despair to contact us on our social media platforms. And if you have any questions in mind, do share them and we will forward them to Ronald for your clarity. But for now, let's head over to an ad break. See you just after this.